This is Bolus Maximus. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Matt. Thanks for tuning in.
This is my first time hosting a podcast. How about you?
Yeah, for sure. Any idea how we're supposed to get people to listen and subscribe to this podcast?
Just by saying it?
Subscribe.
You're tuned in to Bolus Maximus with Brandon and Matt. Don't forget to comment, share, and smash that like button to stay up to date.
Hi, this is Dalyce Wilson, and I'm here interviewing Brandon Denson and Matt Taro of Bolus Maximus for T1D Exchange. So can we start off with an introduction to who you both are and how Bolus Maximus came about?
All right, this is the game that Brandon and I like to play where we point at each other to see who's going to talk first, and I just lost. So my name's Matthew Taro, and I am 34 years old. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 16 years old back in 2002, and that is it feels like forever ago to get to where we are right now, but realistically, in a nutshell, at that time I had good support from my family, but within the diabetes community, you really kind of only meet like one or two people and kind of keep in contact with one or two. There wasn't a real true support system. And while I personally had an older male to speak with a couple times, I never really had a good foundation or a place to go back to hear from males living with diabetes. And so that's really why we started having this conversation, and it's grown into supporting underserved communities. And so now what we're looking at is the people that don't have the conversations that they should be having. That's who we're focusing on with Bolus Maximus.
That was excellent, Matthew. My name is Brandon A. Denson. I was diagnosed 17 years ago, and it was challenging, in the very beginning, but it was one of those things, from out the gate, I promised my mother that I was going to be fine, that we were going to be fine. And at the end of the day, I think I'm living proof of that. I had an opportunity to graduate from Michigan State University, play football at Michigan State University, and I've been able to work in underserved areas. One thing that came to mind when I was diagnosed is I didn't have anybody to talk to. And, one, being a male, two, being a black male, and then three, living with diabetes, that automatically put me in the minority. I was a minority out the gate. And I knew that I had people that I looked up to growing up. And I know for me, one of the biggest things is I wanted to be able to give back in any way that I can, because I know what it felt like not to have something. So being a part of Bolus Maximus and putting it together with Matt, for me in the community, is something that's very, 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 very crucial. Not just for myself and for Matt, but for millions of other people living with diabetes as well.
And that was a great insight into what got you both seeing the need for Bolus Maximus in our society, in different communities, available to underserved communities and things like that. It's really interesting because I was diagnosed with diabetes when I was 7, so I was a lot younger, and you both were like teenagers. So I can see how having someone that represents you and that you can look up to, ask for guidance, especially at that age, in your teens, or some people, are in their early 20s when they get diagnosed. And so those times are important to have the representation, especially what you were talking about, Brandon, being a black man and wanting to have other diabetics to look up to. So when formulating the concept of Bolus Maximus, what was each of your main priorities for what this nonprofit could accomplish?
I'm gonna say that while not being a black male, understanding as a part of Beyond Type 1 and some of the other organizations that I was a part of, I recognized very quickly that it was mostly white, affluent individuals that looked just like me, and it was easy to identify what was missing. And I had been a part of a lot of different organizations and nonprofits that I had volunteered for, and so it made it easy for me to see at that point that there wasn't anybody like Brandon, who was an absolute go-getter, who I see on social media showing up, dancing and singing. I'm like, that's a happy man who should be in front of people, not just because he's black, just because he's happy and he's a living proof of what it means to live with diabetes, but also because he's a Black man and he does display those things. And so that was really important. So our focus always was kind of because we were males, but we both recognized very quickly what, and more so from Brandon, what was needed as far as what communities were missing out from information that they needed.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I'm gonna even rewind it back to the first time that we had a conversation, or no, it might not have been the first time, but it was the first time that we actually were like mentoring somebody. Remember Ali? I don't even know if you remember that, but that was like
young Ali.
Young Ali, you know. So it's interesting how things work, and you know how you kind of just stay consistent with things. And even though it was so small in the thought process behind what we were doing then, it was just a thought. It was just an idea.
Yeah.
But we were kind of putting it together, and then all of a sudden you look 3 years later, and this is where we're at now. You know, we're executing on, you know, which is something that I think is very, very, very needed in the diabetes community, because I think when we speak about men in general, I don't care what your race is, they don't like to talk about things. They don't like to be vulnerable. They don't like to let the guard down. And I think with us, we realize, like, look, it's okay to have bad days. It's okay to have good days. It's okay to not feel good or to talk to people about it. And I think we wanted to break down that barrier of like, look, you can still be tough and still let that guard down living with diabetes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. And I was thinking as you both were talking, it brought me back to my childhood and around the diagnosis and like kind of being aware of who was around me who also had diabetes, and kind of like going off of what you said, Matt, like I felt like I was the only Black person, not the only female, but the only Black person. And then going to diabetes camp, maybe a year after my diagnosis and like all the way up into my teens, just reflecting on who was there at that diabetes camp. Lots of affluent white people. And it was kind of like by chance that I was able to go there just by hearing about it through my endocrinologist and things like that. But having a resource and a nonprofit like Bolus Maximus that not only focuses on like mentorship, but programs and like providing resources to other people is really helpful. But I wanted to dig into that a little bit more and talk about the specifics of what Bolus Maximus does.
Well, we have a motto that we support, educate, and motivate individuals living with diabetes. But I think right now we've focused mostly on the support element. We have calls every Sunday where it's a safe space. It's through Zoom. It's the same time every Sunday where you can come out and share a little bit about yourself, what you're going through, and listen to others, people that may or may not look just like you, that you may have never heard from before. Maybe you've never talked to somebody in the UK. Shout out to all of our friends across the pond who join. That's something that we found very quickly started to happen as a support group. And so when you say, oh, we started a support group for men, well, or anybody that identifies as a male, we're like, well, that was something that we thought was very important, but we realized that there was something much bigger behind just that first introduction to being leaders in that space. So I think aside from support, we're working on programs and putting together a mentorship program. We're working with the diabetes prevention program, and we're really starting to look on a bigger scale now that we've been in operation for almost a full year, just achieving our 501c3 status just recently. So,
Congratulations, you both.
Thank you.
And let's see. I guess I wanted to ask, like, can you both please touch on how having access to a resource like Bolus Maximus or even a mentor specifically would have changed your experiences as younger men?
So I'll jump in on this one. I can't say that it necessarily. Let me back up. I think that it would have changed because I think living with this disease. Excuse me. I think living with this disease, it comes with multiple different barriers. But I think being at 17, trying to figure out where I'm going to college, if I'm still playing football at the next level, I think to have somebody to take that stress and that burden off of like me being the only one going through this, I think it would have felt great to be able to talk to somebody or to be able to relate to somebody. And I look at like our Sunday calls that we host. We all come from different places, different demographics, different races, different economic backgrounds, but we all share one common thing, and we're either a caregiver or we're living with diabetes. And I think anytime that you have an opportunity to meet another diabetic, it just feels good because you know what that person is going through. You know, no matter where you come from, no matter how you were raised, at the end of the day, you automatically have a connection. So I think it would have felt good to have somebody to kind of talk to and like, you know, voice how I was feeling after practices and after school and, you know, things that were going on at home. I think that to have like somebody to talk to, that would have felt great. But I also understand that if maybe I would have had that growing up, I might not be in the same position that I'm in now to really want to, you know, make sure people that are not just younger than me, but that are older than me and the same age have that platform that they can come and talk to people.
Absolutely. And earlier, Brandon, you mentioned how a lot of men in general, just across the board, don't really open up or feel like the safety, like that they can do that, one, without judgment, or two, just like that it will be received. So going off of that, have you noticed a connection between access to being able to share freely and like open up and success rates for diabetes management, either in either of your lives or friends you've had or people you've worked with, things like that?
I would definitely say just answering part of that question and part of the previous question, like experience plays a large role in how much you are willing to share and when you're willing to share it and be vulnerable. So if you haven't gone through certain things, it's very difficult for you to say, well, you know what, I just got to say this. So at 16 and 17 years old, like, I don't know if I would have found, nobody wants to be told what to do in high school. Like, that's like, get away from me. You know, and I think that's, as you're a caregiver listening to this, if you're a young man or woman listening to this with diabetes and you understand that, what's up? But there are people that want to help you. And so I was very lucky looking at how that might change over years, where we went through certain experiences. And Brandon and I started about 3 years ago, 3.5, almost 4 years ago now, having conversations where we were being open with each other. And we were on a call with just a regular old phone call, if anybody remembers what those are like, where we would call each other. I'd be driving around the country, taking photos and taking video and camping with my dog. And I'd call up Brandon while I'd be on the road for a couple hours, and we would just kind of, you know, shoot the breeze and just talk about stuff and like where we were both at and kind of open up. So that was like our first step to having like a safe space, a shared safe space with each other. And then, you know, you turn around and you look at like the Instagram community and you're like, I bet those people want this too. Right? What do you think? What do you think, Brandon?
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I would. I can also say that topic of like solidarity and connection and just kind of like shared experiences has really allowed me to open up more to people that I've just met as well. Like, so at the diabetes camp or whatever, I think that was like a part of the summer where all of us who attended were just like stripped down and just like, rah, like, you know, just let it all out, because maybe we're not able to talk about certain things with people who we know just won't understand. Yeah. So I can definitely see how like holding space for people to share and open up is just as crucial as those like participating in it and trying, you know.
Can I say something too? Just like when you guys bring up camps, and Matt, you worked at a camp and you got to go to a camp as you were younger. The thing is, what I look at camps are very, very good in my opinion, and that's coming from an adult and that's attending and speaking, you know, to the campers. But I always tell them, like, I wish I was diagnosed earlier, because it feels good to be around all of those kids and you're checking your blood sugar and you get to play activities and you get to, you know, you get to, I think you get to learn a lot especially if you're newly diagnosed and you got kids that have been going there for 5-10 years, you know, maybe even plus, and like you're learning so much. The other thing is, when I go to camps, I don't see a lot of color at camps. I don't see a lot of black kids at camps. And for me, I'm a big kid at heart and I always will be. But for me, like seeing kids in underserved areas, I know that they would love to attend a camp and go to a camp.
Yeah, and I think you and I have had this conversation where it's not just the act of showing up and sleeping in a cabin or outdoors or being with a bunch of other kids. It's the freedom that's associated, the feelings that come with being in that space, that the underserved communities and the kids that don't have an opportunity to experience those things. I know for a fact that the camp that I worked at, there was one young man who was black, and he was adopted and to a white family. And there were 2 families of Hispanic children. And I'll never forget that the only kid who was borderline type 2 at like preteen was Hispanic and was overweight. And so when I think back and I look at the demographic and I go, holy moly, like it was all white kids and then a very small sliver. And that really, I hadn't really thought about until right now, like at that camp. But our conversation about the camp, like ski and snowboard camp, which is something that there aren't any black families that come to those camps.
Correct.
And that feeling of freedom that I experience on a snowboard, I'm like, you have to go through so many things to get there. You have to have so many things happen for you, or people give stuff to you, and then get to that point where kids of color don't have that option.
I love that you're bringing this up, Matt, because I think if I can just reflect back, what I'm hearing is that through your experiences and just like observations in our society, that a lot of the resources that maybe like white or more affluent diabetics have access to, like those, you're noticing that there's just no black people or people of color, very limited amounts. And that goes for a host of reasons, like the diabetes camp that I went to. And I later started working there as an adult. And when I started to work there, and not only just the age being older and being able to kind of unpack everything, and realizing that, yeah, like of that whole summer, throughout the whole summer, we would have like, you know, under 100 black kids through the whole summer, the different sessions. And, you know, what you're saying about the steps to like even be able to learn how to ski or access to all that stuff, you know, finances, having people around you who also are skilled in those areas, whether that's swimming, skiing, riding a bike, all that stuff. So like having access to the people or the resources or the lessons or the classes.
Even just the time to travel to get to a mountain from most of the places. Right.
It's just not happening.
It's not going to happen.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
And so that kind of leads into my next question. We live in a time that continues to see the fight for Black equity, representation, justice, and basic human rights continue. How does your platform of being founders of Bolus Maximus prioritize and uplift historically marginalized type 1 diabetics, like either from like the Black or Latinx diaspora?
I think just out the gate, I know there's a ton of organizations that we may not even know about because we only see the major organizations like JDRF, Beyond Type 1, CWD, ADA, you know, TCOYD. We only see like these major organizations. But I'll honestly say, as Matt says it, I'm the president. You know, that feels good to know that I'm an African American, I'm a black male, and I'm a president. But I look at my role as the same whether I have that title or not. It doesn't change anything for me. It doesn't change for me wanting to connect not just to underserved areas. I want to be able to connect to everybody. We want to be able to connect to everybody. You know, but we are doing something I feel that hasn't been done before. You know, there's a black president and there's a white vice president. And like I said, those titles, they don't mean anything if you aren't acting on them. Our goal is to connect to everybody. We have a platform. It's just like if you go shopping, it's certain things that you want. The person else that's behind you that went shopping, it's certain things that they want. We know that our platform may not be for everybody, but we welcome everybody. without a doubt, we're gonna always welcome everybody. You have a safe space here. There is no judgment. When our Sunday calls, you come as you are. It's like going to church on Sunday. Come as you are.
And I definitely think that a lot of what we've focused on doing right from the get-go is to say, well, this is a point blank. This is what we're seeing. This is what needs to change. And that was something that we both had said at organizations that we had worked with or worked for previously. And that didn't echo through the hallways like it should have.
And do you think that like working maybe for other diabetic or diabetes companies, or like working at other facilities, I guess, in your life has kind of opened your eyes to more of what can be done within your nonprofit and to make it more successful?
I definitely think so. I think anytime you try to change something from the top down, and this is coming from my coach at Michigan State, everything has to start from the ground up, period. If you don't start it from the ground up, then there's going to be a problem trying to change that structure. If it's handed down from the top down, you're never going to reach the people at the bottom that may need the most help. And what we're saying is in this diabetes community is that you can start high, but you got to spread wide and then go up, because if you don't, then you're going to leave a lot of people out of the equation on a lot of different things, whether it's for technology, whether it's for insulin, whether it's just for having a safe space to go because they don't feel comfortable. And we want to make everybody feel comfortable.
We try hard. Like, we pride ourselves on like very much saying we know how to find those people. We know how to look for them at the very least. Even if we don't know how to communicate or speak the same language, we're going to find you. And then we'll find somebody who does so that we can help communicate with you. And I think that's super important. So yeah, we want to uplift everybody. But there's certainly enough of focus on the white community, people that have money to go do all of those events, to go to the galas and do all that stuff. Like, we're gonna change that a little bit.
And I love that. I love that you both see the need for that, and that you recognize that things could be better for the type 1 diabetes community 1,000%.
I'll be honest. If I didn't volunteer at like a couple galas and work at a gala, I probably wouldn't have been in there. And what I got to witness with my own 2 eyes, which is baffling, that I know at one particular gala, me as a worker, and then there was another black woman that was a volunteer. There were 2 black people in a gala full of 700 to 800 people. To me, it's like, if we can't see this as an issue and try to solve it, then that's shame on us,
Wow, yeah, representation, like we've been talking about over and over again in this interview, is like crucial, in order for you to feel hope. I think sometimes, we need to see like other people thriving and succeeding or being in those spaces. And it's like, oh, like, yeah, I deserve to be in these spaces, and these spaces are built for me too. And I think historically, like a lot of diabetics, and myself included, haven't felt that way. So thank you for touching on that. You both are based in San Diego now, a city that is kind of home to many diabetes organization headquarters such as Dexcom, Tandem, and JDRF. Do you see your location and proximity to these recognizable organizations as an important aspect to Bolus Maximus' success?
No, we just like the beach. Next question.
Perfect.
So I actually work for one of those companies, right? My day job is with Tandem. So I moved here from Los Angeles specifically to take a job in the diabetes community and space. And that really opened me up to looking internally to say, things are changing on the inside. They're happening. They could happen faster, but they're happening. But that wasn't until more recently, right? A lot of social injustice happened in 2020. Which was very eye-opening for a majority of the United States. And I think even before that, if you hadn't already recognized that there was a problem, at least it's on the radar for most people now that it's so serious that it needs to be talked about, it needs to be discussed, and something needs to change. And so I think we're lucky that we're here. We really do like the beach.
I love the beach.
We like to rollerblade and run and do all the things that an outdoor lifestyle for a healthy diabetic really looks like. That's why I'm here. I want to be able to ride my bike year round and rollerblade year round. It's the beginning of February. I can go out ride my bike tomorrow morning like it's nothing, like it's the middle of June. So
I'll be 100% honest with you. You know, from making that transition from living in Massachusetts for 2.5 years and to coming to California, for me, it's been life changing. You know, I think still trying to put a lot of things together within Bolus Maximus, within the community, within just personally putting things together. But I think this was the best move. I moved out here because I wanted to continue to help change people's lives within the diabetes community. And I know it'll never be like 100%, 120% done, but I know this was a huge step in making that happen. And, you know, like with all the tech companies out here, you know, Dexcom, Medtronic, you have Tandem, you know, you have all of these companies that are here. It's like we want to be able to figure out how do we get everything from this tech and these resources and all of this to the community, especially for people that don't even know it's available or don't have access to it.
But just to say, though, and I think Brandon has the actual numbers, San Diego is a unique place for us to be because it is predominantly white. Right. And so that's the type of thing that you may see if you come visit here, but to look at the actual numbers is startling because the percentage of black
it's going down.
It went down.
Yeah.
It went down in like a year.
And it's a small number. It's a single digit number.
Yeah.
So of percentage of people that live here in San Diego. So for us, we have a lot of work to do for that small margin of individuals in our own personal community. We travel, 150 miles up, we're in Los Angeles. We go a couple more 100 miles up, we're in Northern California. And there's a lot of areas between here and there that we need to focus on. But starting where we are right now, it just opens your eyes to say that even though all those places are here, the people that we're looking to help are not.
Absolutely. And I think that's awesome that you both have done that research. And I've noticed as well, being a Black woman living here, I did the research before I moved out, just being like, how many Black folks are out there? And it was a shockingly low number. But I think that kind of goes to show that this is even more necessary, and just also the outreach to make people aware and kind of change those numbers a little bit. All right, so just kind of wrapping up so far, you both have given me tons of gems and lots of insight to what's led you up to creating Bolus Maximus today, but just work-life balance related. So especially for adults living with a chronic illness, that work-life balance can be a big adjustment from day to day sometimes. So how do you both manage to give your work and entrepreneurial endeavors your full energy and fit in time for self-care or decompression from week to week? Or does that not exist?
Ooh, it exists
Okay.
for sure. I think it has to exist, or we would probably be laying down in a ditch or something. Dealing with diabetes it's a lot. But I know for me, I love to hit the beach and rollerblade. That's my escape. That's my exercise. That's my serenity. Getting kissed by the sun, or it could be freaking raining out there. I don't care. I just want to spin the blades, get the exercise, let the brain kind of drift and wander, and, just feel good. Feel good.
Yeah, I think, like I said before, being in a space where it's always sunny, or at least the weather is always positive. If you start your day and you're not worried about the weather, there's a lot of stress that doesn't enter into your daily thought. And so that's really a big, I will say though, unfortunately, I've taken quite a hit after starting Bolus Maximus. And it's not a slight to what we've been doing. It's just the nature of the business. I work in diabetes. I live with diabetes, and I operate a diabetes nonprofit. So right now I'm really focused on the time that I do have away from all of those things. I still have one of those lingering, right? I'm always going to have diabetes. So I've been getting out. I've been doing more. I ride my bike. I love to rollerblade as well. I've been running a lot more on the beach. I spend time with the dog. That's my safe space, outdoor in nature. And
Going out into the mountains.
Getting in,
Looking at Mexico, you know.
Getting into the car and driving out. And then also I made some life changes. With sobriety has been a big one for me. That's been something that's been really important for me. So that was a big change specifically for my diabetes and my mental health.
1,000%. And that's all part of self-care. I love that you shared that with us because, you know, maybe a lot of our readers or viewers or listeners, they're going to be going through things themselves and they're going to want to improve their lifestyles. And so it's great to just hear other examples of how you can take care of yourself, whether that's just a complete lifestyle change, diet, exercise, reading a book, journaling, sharing, things like that.
I want to throw one more in there, I guess, as self-care is the Sunday calls. You know, I'll be honest, this last Sunday I was kind of going through it. I told Matt before we started, I was like, man, I'm just not feeling it today. And then when we got off the call, I just felt, something came over me. I felt refreshed. I felt revived. I don't know, it just felt really, really good. You know, I don't know if it was because I got to connect with other people, but I'm pretty sure that is why, you know, because we all go through the same things and we all kind of have we hit those brick walls and it's like, God, like what's going on, you know, but for me, it just felt good to like actually be on that call. And, you know, sometimes it's a lot what we do, but at the end of the day, we know why we're doing it. You know, it's way bigger than us. So, you know, for us, that's what keeps us going.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you both for sitting with me to do this interview for T1D Exchange. If anyone would like to check out Bolus Maximus, if they wanted to help out in any way, whether that's like financial, volunteer, how can they get in contact with you to support?
Yeah, right now you can find us on Instagram. That's one of our main focuses. It's just been something that was our entry point into the community. So we're on as Bolus Maximus, and then our website is bolus, BOLUS, the letter M.org. We have a schedule of our calls coming up. We have some presentations by individuals from the community coming up, some really exciting talks at the end of this Black History Month. And then we also have a YouTube channel and our personal pages, but mostly through Bolus Maximus, and that's where you can find us. And then thebolusmaximus@gmail.com if you want to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dalyce. We appreciate it.
Keep it 100. If you don't know, now you know. Bolus Maximus is not sponsored by anybody, but if you would like to get involved or sponsor a podcast,
please reach out to us at thebolusmaximus@gmail.com. That is thebolusmaximus@gmail, or through our website, bolus, BOLUSM.org. That is www.bolusm.org. We also have an Instagram, Facebook, and a YouTube channel. Please feel free to reach out.